This is Robin Hood Gardens in East London, one of the most controversial concrete housing estates in London, and indeed one of the most controversial concrete housing estates in Britain. The big question here is whether these council flats, all 213 of them, should come down, be demolished, or whether they should stay and residents move somewhere else nearby. The strange thing is, although some residents like the place, others hate it. And equally odd is that opinion is divided amongst critics and historians and architects. Some of the greatest architects in the land, like Richard Rogers and Zaha Hadid, say this is an architectural masterpiece. Some historians do too. Well, I've come to find out for myself. Robin Hood Gardens was designed by architects Alison and Peter Smithson, who had come to prominence with designing the groundbreaking Huntston School in Norfolk. They became involved in the independent group with artists such as Edoardo Palazzi and Nigel Henderson, and were acclaimed for the This Is Tomorrow exhibition at the Whitechapel Gallery in 1956. Their modernist design for Robin Hood Gardens was conceived for a difficult site at a time when architects were thinking about post-war city living.
They were working amongst a group of friends, colleagues, who were thinking about, well, how do we replace the stuff that is the stuff is lost? And all of that is based on a real passion that better housing could make people's lives better, which in turn would improve society. It's easy to look back on that and say, well, it was naive and so on, but I think that was the spirit of the time. That's fundamentally why architects have come out so passionately in support of the scheme, because they recognise that good buildings are about not only making good offices or good housing, but actually making good spaces which then contribute to the city.
Yeah. So, Gary, what about a little tour of the flat, just to show me what you've got here? So,
kitchen.
More dogs. Gary Truman has been living in Robin Hood Gardens for 30 years. His flat is a 2-bedroom duplex with generous-sized rooms by today's standards. The recent government decision not to list the building means that if the site is redeveloped, residents like Gary will have to move out.
Living room? Got a living room.
Which is a great size, isn't it?
It's great, isn't it? Got a bathroom.
Yeah.
Toilet. And bedroom.
Gary, one thing that really fascinates me coming in and looking out at the view here from your bedroom is that towering above it is Canary Wharf with a whole world of bankerdom. Is that a bit like a provocation almost, seeing that?
I'll tell you the truth, I don't ever look at that because there's so much going on that hill. We've got foxes down there, there's squirrels, there's so much wildlife on that hill that there's more to look at than sort of that.
You're born and bred Poplar,
yeah,
and you've seen huge social changes here, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of people that moved in was unemployed. Everyone sort of called them the posh flats. Everyone, you got one of these flats, and it was like, wow. I would hate to move, because as soon as you would never get a community like we've got here.
But if somebody came and said to you, Gary, this is an architectural masterpiece, this is, as good as Christopher Wren, I mean, would you take that seriously?
Yeah, I agree with you.
You like it?
Yeah, I love it here.
Robin Hood Gardens was truly radical when it was designed at the end of the 60s. What the architects Peter and Alison Smithson were trying to do was to take the idea of a traditional London terrace street and build it in concrete blocks up in the sky. Usually you'd come out of your council flat and come out into a small balcony, if anything at all. And here you come out of your flat onto what really is a street. It is actually wide enough for 2, 3, 4 people to pass about at the same time, for children to skateboard or cycle or scoot. But you get the idea that what the architects wanted to do was to create traditional London streets in a new form. Well, did they succeed? That's another question.
It should be blown up.
They made a point. 15, 20 years ago, it was voted by Nationwide, the TV programme, as the worst design block in England.
Everything's bang out of order. You get stuck in the lifts. You got all the rubbish all around the place.
All of that period, the housing was lack maintenance. You can't build buildings and expect them to stand 40 years without major investment. If you're a flat owner, a house owner, you know that every 10, 15 years you've got to invest a major piece of money in housing. It's also, unfortunately, since day one, been used as a sink estate. And it's an irony to say, well, it's the fault of architects, when actually there's a kind of abandonment of social responsibilities.
What is it particularly that you find fault with? What's wrong with it?
Well, the thing is, the community here is excellent. This is what we will miss. But the only thing is The design of the houses are not very good at all. The kitchen itself, just on its own, is upstairs and everything else downstairs. So we're like forever running up and down. Also, the leakings are the worst problems in the buildings. You have to live in something to understand. And we are living people. We are living proof of these buildings. Originally, I came in with one son, and I have 5 living in a 2-bedroom, so it's not very ideal. So maybe, I don't know, maybe it's mostly because of the overcrowdedness that's making me feel this way.
The Royal Institute of British Architects in central London is a deeply glamorous building, and it couldn't be further away, could it, from Robin Hood Gardens in East London. I gather here this evening as a reception for the 20th Century Society and an exhibition of photographs and models of Robin Hood Gardens are architects, historians, critics and students from the University of Greenwich who are thinking of what the building could be if it was renovated. But somehow there remains a big question here, a gap between what residents of Robin Hood Gardens want and feel about the building and what architects and designers think about it.
It's a place of mystery and beauty to me. It took me a while to realise, and I would expect people not to get it straight away. But if you read what was written about it at the beginning, if you understand what it was aiming for, that it's meant to be a sort of neutral background from which you look out over grass or over the city, and your journey through it is interestingly varied. All that to me is delightful and good and special.
I've talked to residents at Robin Hood Gardens, I've talked to the conservationists, to architectural historians, and really, my heart's not here. I'm a born Londoner. I certainly wouldn't want to live in Robin Hood Gardens. I think that when it comes to the architecture, this is a great idea that was never realised with the money, perhaps the love, but not the attention it deserved. Of course there will be people that say, I've lived here all my life and so I want to stay here. That's not about architecture, that's about home and where you want to be. There'll be people that say, I want to get out of here, and that's often because they have growing families or many children. But would I knock it down? No, I wouldn't. Apart from the fact that great concrete buildings like this embody an enormous amount of energy, and that's just wasteful these days to knock it down, you could tune the building up just enough to make it a really great student hall of residence. Imagine if the University of East London or the University of Greenwich could have their students here, all this smartened up and rewired and working well. I think that would be an ideal solution. And I think then the building would be worth listing and worth preserving. But for everyday families, it's not quite right.